Welcome back, welcome back. Next week sees parliamentary elections in Denmark. The Liberal Conservative coalition has been in power since 2001 and is expected to do pretty well. But its re-election is far from certain because a new centrist party, the New Alliance, may complicate coalition arithmetic since its leader, Naser Khader, refuses to commit himself to backing either the Prime Minister or the Social Democratic opposition as of now. Joining me today from Copenhagen is the man himself, the man who calls himself a secular Muslim, the leader of the New Alliance Party, Naser Khader. Naser, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for inviting me.
Starting at the very beginning, you've not said yet if there was a coalition coming up, which party you would go with. Do you regard both sides of the political spectrum equally interesting for you, or would you tend to hope to go with the Liberal Conservative coalition or with the Social Democratic?
You know, we are a new centre party, centre-right party, and we will give the Prime Minister, Anders Fogh Rasmussen, the first chance to make a coalition where we can get a lot of concessions, political concessions. So we do it on conditions. So I think he will deliver the concessions, and I think it will. The Prime Minister will continue, but he have to deliver the conditions first. We want a tax reform. We want to reduce the tax from 63%, the marginal tax or top tax, down to 40%, because it will. We need hands in Denmark. We need persons to help us getting more welfare, and our solution is getting a tax reform. And we have told the Prime Minister, if you give us concessions on these issues, you can be our Prime Minister.
Well, that's a very clear message. Now, you played an important role during the whole cartoons row and so on, didn't you? When you mediated talks between the government and Muslims. Do you think, in fact, that
Yes.
there's a better closeness developed since then between the two groups?
In my opinion, the cartoon crisis, we got out of the cartoon crisis with positive results. You know, now the Danish people can see that the Muslims in Denmark are different. They are not a homogeneous group. You have democratic modern Muslims, and you have Islamists. That's why I started an organization called Democratic Muslims to speak for the majority of the Muslims in Denmark, because we want peace, we want integration, we want to show our loyalty to Denmark, we want to show that you can be Muslim and Democrat in the same time. So, in my opinion, we got the positive results of the cartoon crisis. You have some Islamists trying to get some of the young Muslims to go in the wrong way, and that's why my new party, New Alliance, we are a center party that have a lot of people of every kind, every culture, every religion. We want we want to give constructive solutions to the problems and the integration problems we have in Denmark.
One final question: you need at least 2% to qualify for being part of the assembly and so on. 2%. What percentage do you need as a party? What would you like to predict? What would you like to have next week?
You know, it could be 2 persons. It could be 6 persons. But all the polls tell us that our party will play a major role after the election. So it could be with 2 persons, it could be with 6 or 8 persons. So I want as many persons as possible, but we can manage it with a few persons.
Well, thank you very much indeed for joining us, Naser. Thank you. Pakistan opposition leader Benazir Bhutto has been placed under effective house arrest today, we're told, as part of an attempt to stifle protest rallies taking place across Pakistan. Demanding an end, these rallies were going to do to the state of emergency put in place by President Musharraf last weekend. The President sacked the Chief Justice and replaced the Supreme Court with his own hand-picked judges. He also took all private TV stations off the air and arrested hundreds of political opponents. So what will be the outcome of all of this? I'm joined here in the studio by Dr. Farzana Shaikh, a Pakistan expert from Chatham House, the world-respected institute which debates international issues. Farzana, welcome. What next after today's events? I mean, it is significant and it is pretty well confirmed that the 30-day detention, isn't it? That's a significant step.
Yes, indeed. I think what is probably most significant and what is bound to be uppermost in the minds of many people is the fate of this so-called power-sharing agreement between General Musharraf and Benazir Bhutto. An agreement that both the United States and the United Kingdom had worked very carefully, spent many months trying to cobble together in order to provide some kind of a political consensus to underpin what is still an extremely controversial war on terror. And I think many people will be asking today, after Bhutto's effective house arrest, where do we stand with this power-sharing agreement? Where are we at with this so-called deal between Musharraf and Benazir?
It could be revived again despite this, could it? The deal between Musharraf and Benazir Bhutto, that was never consummated, of course, in full or in writing, but it could be revived?
Indeed, I think, what is, I think, quite important to note is that at the moment government ministers are being extremely careful about how they present Benazir's effective house arrest. No one is prepared to say that her freedom of movement has been restricted as a result of a breakdown in negotiations between Bhutto and Musharraf. What they are saying is that these restrictions have been imposed for her own security, which would suggest that things may not yet be over. There have also, of course, been reports that backdoor communications continue. She, of course, has decided to take a very defiant stance against General Musharraf, and I think one reason for this is because she now understands that not to do so would probably be committing political suicide. She has seen political support for her within her party seep away like water from a sieve. So I think in order to shore up some of her own political credibility, she needs to be seen to be taking a tough stance against a man many in her party regard as a military dictator.
And in fact, at the end of that, are you saying that you think they could still come to an agreement or not?
Well, I think what Benazir has done, despite her very defiant stance, is not close off the door entirely to negotiations. She has called for Musharraf to keep his part of the bargain, which basically meant holding elections on time, giving up his uniform, and of course going ahead with the formation of a caretaker government. And she said as recently as yesterday that all that still remains open to negotiation. So I think she's also giving signals that she would not be entirely averse to reopening negotiations, though I do believe that after today's developments we are likely to see something of a breach in trust between the two sides. This agreement, David, between the two of them was always in doubt. General Musharraf was taken virtually kicking and screaming to talk to Benazir Bhutto. Benazir Bhutto herself did not seem terribly happy about having to talk to a military dictator. So it was always in question right from the outset.
And would you say, Farzana, today, just under a week since the martial law situation was inaugurated last Saturday, would you say that today General Musharraf is more powerful than before the martial law, or much weaker?
Oh, unquestionably much weaker. I mean, General Musharraf, of course, always had the militants against him extremely hostile to his regime. But what he faces today is a much wider array of political opposition. A legal fraternity outraged by his decision to subordinate the judiciary to the executive, a defiant media, angry opposition parties, enraged human rights activists, and most importantly, if opinion polls are anything to go by, an increasingly large number of disenchanted, disillusioned Pakistanis. So yes, he has been probably fatally weakened.
Fatally weakened. So would you say at the moment, the thing he was quoted as saying in the last few hours, that there will be elections, they may be delayed a month from January, middle of January to the middle of February? That's not good enough, says Benazir Bhutto, but if you were making your plans as a political leader in Pakistan, would you expect there to be a general election on February the 15th?
Well, at the moment, I'm not prepared to place any bets on it, David, and I'll tell you why. I mean, the big question is whether or not Musharraf, can Musharraf be trusted with his word? You know, he has agreed in the past to give up his army uniform. He has signally failed to do so, and even now remains extremely vague about when precisely he will give up that uniform, despite overwhelming pressure from the United States. He has as yet given us no clear timetable for the lifting of emergency rule. And of course, it always remains a possibility that the National Assembly will be summoned and may well choose to extend its tenure. It is, after all, a National Assembly where General Musharraf enjoys a majority as a result of extremely controversial elections held in 2002, and I wouldn't rule that out, in which case, of course, General Musharraf could simply turn around and tell the international community, look, this was a democratic decision. The National Assembly has decided to extend its tenure, and who knows when elections might be held within the space of that 1 year.
Thank you very much, Farzana. Thank you for being with us. This is a subject to which we will be returning, no doubt. The dramatic happenings in Pakistan. After the news, I'll be talking to that splendid comedian and author, Ben Elton. So don't go away.